welcome to today's episode of Tomorrow's Leader, where we dive deep on all things leader related to leading yourself and leading other people. I'm John Laurito, your host, here with a fantastic guest with a truly inspiring story, Jennifer Rodriguez, who is the owner of Think Holistic Fitness. Jennifer, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for joining today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you are in the backdrop of your business, which looks like a phenomenal gym and a place that you can't help but become more healthy just by walking in there, right? That's all you got to do is
Well,
walk in.
we hope so. And yes, so this is where all the ladies work out. They come in and train, learn to lift heavy things.
Awesome. Great equipment there, and that's where all the action happens.
Yes.
Good
Yes.
stuff. Good stuff. Well, I want
Lots
to
of
get into that. I want to talk about your business. You've got, you're a successful business owner. I love to have business owners that are having success, especially now during the pandemic, because you've
yes.
definitely had to do some unique things. I want to get into that a lot, but I think it would be really great. I know your backstory, the audience does, and I think it's an incredibly interesting and inspiring story. So you want to take us back a little bit to kind of where things
Yeah.
started?
So years ago, many years ago, more than 20, now that I think back, I was a professional flutist and I had a flute studio consistently of 60 students per week. And I was an adjunct faculty member at Queens College in New York. And I played professionally and I played for years. I started playing when I was 6 years old. And it
Wow.
was my life and it's what I knew to do. And it fit my personality really well of being somewhat obsessive compulsive. I like repetition. I like doing things consistently. But after a certain point, I was about 28 years old. And about a month after my mom passed away, I got in a car accident up in Long Island, and a car lost its rear axle off its car, and it was like swiveling back and forth. And I thought the driver was drunk, but he wasn't drunk. He had lost control because the axle fell off and he swung into me. And literally, I had my Jeep then drove like sideways. Like it was crazy. So I didn't think I was hurt so badly after that. But then about 3 weeks later, I was having a lot of numbness, tingling, deadness down my arm, and I had herniated 2 discs in my neck.
Mm.
And that just caused chronic pain for 3 years. I would say three
Wow.
years
And
Yeah.
what did that do to your playing the flute? I mean, was that?
I'll never forget the day I knew I couldn't play the way I wanted to anymore. I was very good. I had very good technique, finger technique. That was my signature claim to fame. And I remember demonstrating something for then a student. Yeah, and I remember I could not get the fingers on my left hand to keep up with the fingers on my right hand.
Wow.
And I was pretty devastated, because it was something that was so natural for me and I couldn't do it anymore. And I remember saying to myself in my head, I didn't say it out loud at the time, but I said, okay, this is it. I'm putting my flute down.
Wow.
Because I didn't like that I couldn't do what I used to do and I couldn't get an answer why.
So you felt
I
like it
just kept,
wasn't, you couldn't play at that level, and
mm-mm.
that was not something you wanted to do if you couldn't play at the
Yeah.
level that you knew you could.
If I couldn't play at that level, I didn't want to play anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I look back on that now, that was a bad attitude. But
Well,
but
I
I
get
didn't
it
want to
though.
play.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
totally get it. It sounds like your whole life was that you're at such a high level. And I know a lot of people like that, whether it's athletes or people in business that have specialty or talents or whatnot. When you feel yourself not being able to get back up there, did the passion go away a little bit, or the enjoyment, or was it just a matter of,
Yes.
yeah,
It was interesting though. It went away and I didn't want to because I couldn't do what was my thing. My thing was being super technical and playing really fast. That was
mm-hmm,
my thing.
mm-hmm,
I couldn't do that anymore. And I couldn't manage to fix myself. I went to chiropractors, I went for acupuncture, I did everything. And then shortly after that, my daughter's father and we were married. We moved down here to North Carolina and I was still having pain. I lived in Goldsboro. And I remember going for an x-ray on my neck and my neck was like completely straight, like you should have a curvature in your neck. And it was completely straight and one vertebrae was buckled over another.
wow,
And the pain was just constant. I felt like I had like a snake around my neck.
wow.
Um, So, after, they wanted to put me on painkillers, and I didn't want to do anything like that. I didn't mind taking an occasional muscle relaxer,
Mhm.
but I don't like having to rely on medication to that degree. So somehow, some which way, after we moved up here to, the Holly Springs area, I found somebody that understood how to do trigger point injections.
Mhm.
And after the trigger point injection, I was able to start weight training myself literally out of pain.
Wow.
So there was a period of time that I was like, okay, this combination's working.
Hmm.
And because from the pain, I had so many atrophied muscles in my back. Okay, so the more atrophied the muscles became, the more your body goes into pain.
Mhm.
So the more the muscle atrophies, the more your body compensates. The
Mhm.
more it compensates, the more you go into this, very poor compensatory mechanism. And that was my pattern for years. I didn't know it. Nobody can explain it to me. But once I could look back now and see what had happened, I was literally like kind of re-engineering where I was supposed to go. I was giving rehab to myself without really understanding. But then once it started getting better, and then I would do different things. I would do some neck traction. I would do some chiropractic that worked a little bit. But really, what it was just getting stronger.
Mhm.
Getting the right muscles to be stronger.
Mhm.
And at that point, I was like, okay, maybe there's more I need to know about this. And
Mm.
that's when I started educating myself more, going back to school.
Yeah.
And
Was that the first time you got into working out, or had you worked out
No,
your
I
whole
had
life?
always worked out.
Yeah.
I always did work out, but
Okay.
not to the degree where I was like, okay, this muscle clearly feels better when I do this, not
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
thoughtfully.
Yeah.
I had a background in Alexander technique, which is for musicians. We use that a lot, but it's really getting in tune with muscles.
Mhm.
So I was able to kind of use some of that to kind of help myself a
Mhm.
bit,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And then I started studying postural restoration, okay, which is it was not known back then, but it's really kind of learning different ways to get your body to come back into a zone of apposition. So that was something new years ago.
Mhm.
Now it's kind of new. People are like, oh, wow, postural restorations, that's cutting edge. But to me, it's like was knowledge from years ago because it was one of the things that helped me.
Yeah.
So I studied that some more,
Wow.
and it just kind of evolved. And I remember I worked at the Y. I was working at the Y, upstairs on their wellness floor. It was a part-time job at the time. And somebody asked me, like, they're like, oh, you weight train? And it wasn't the thing for women to weight train, that was like 12 years ago,
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
wasn't the thing. And I was like, yeah, I weight train. They're like, oh, we're looking for a female trainer, so I worked there for a while teaching women to get off the cardio equipment and get off the treadmills and get out of, nothing against group fitness, but come in
Mhm.
and lift some, real weights.
Mhm.
So yeah, and that's kind of how the whole thing started, and I didn't
Yeah.
expect it to be something. I didn't totally expect it to be something until, unfortunately, my marriage ended, and
Mhm.
my daughter was about 5, and I was like, oh, I was like, okay, well, this didn't go as planned. This
Mhm.
wasn't the plan, but here it is now. And that was a pivotal time in my life. Yeah,
Yeah.
that really made me look at things and say, like, okay, I have to, you know, be much more for my daughter now.
Mhm.
Life
Yeah.
is very different.
Did it
Yeah.
immediately come to you that, hey, you know what, my future and what I want to do is in health and fitness? Did you find that, were you still searching at that point? Were you thinking about getting back into playing the flute or?
No, I wasn't. I wouldn't get back into playing the flute because when you work at something that hard for such a long time, the amount of time it takes to put into something to become such high level. And I was like, I could never make up for that lost time.
Mhm.
But the thing I thought about for a long time, I was like, what did I like so much about, music? Was it music? And I realized at the time it wasn't necessarily music, it was helping people. Like I loved seeing my students get from one point to another. I had students that got into Juilliard pre-college programs, and just seeing them take off and seeing them find this like sense of worth about themselves and sense of pride, that's what I loved.
Yeah.
So once I started figuring that out, Like it took a lot of like thinking about thinking about things. I really had to go back and understand myself at a different point.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say the first 2 years after my divorce, I did a lot of soul searching.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working at the Y then full time. And, I started connecting the dots, be like, what is it that makes me tick? Like, what do I like? And what inspires me to want to do more and do better? And because you need that in life, you need that in your job. You don't want to feel stale. You want to feel like, oh my gosh, this is the next thing. This
Mm-hmm.
is where I can go next with this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I found that common denominator.
Yeah.
And that's where I started, putting more and more time in education and schooling. I actually started going back to school to get a degree in dietetics, and I did a couple of rotations. I had an internship, and one of them was in a nursing home, and I was like, this is not what I want to do. So I was trying to like be like, is it this or is it that? Like I was,
Yeah.
it was like a regrowth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that have gone through kind of that period of time where you're searching, you're trying to understand yourself, you're trying to figure out what your next chapter of life looks like. How that's a really great way to think about it though. What are you about? What are you passionate about? Because I think some
Yeah.
people they're drawn more to trying to answer the question of money. Okay, what can I do that's going to
Yeah.
keep me afloat or make me successful and earn a lot of money, and they're going in a direction, the wrong direction for the wrong reasons, versus what you started with was, okay, what am I all about? What makes me
Yeah.
happy? What am I passionate about? Right.
Yeah. The money was important, but I knew that I never had a problem when I taught, flute students. I never had a problem getting students,
Mm-hmm.
where other people are like, how do you have so many students? And I was like, I don't know, I have a lot of students.
Yeah.
But part of it was, I really enjoyed it. I made it fun for people. I liked it. It was enjoyable. I made them do things they couldn't do before.
Yeah.
Word of mouth gets around. And I had a good time,
Mm-hmm.
so it was something that I enjoyed doing. So like attracts like, and that energy attracts each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the same thing happened at the Y, so I had a lot of people that, got to know me and got to know, how I would relate to people and how I would do things. And, especially for women were super scared of the weight section back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, not so much. I mean, some women still, but it's
Mm-hmm.
more, especially for younger kids, you see it's more for girls
Mm-hmm.
to, go into a weight section.
Yeah.
But, back 12, 15 years ago, it was not like that.
Yeah.
It was not like that at all. So taking a woman in there and getting them to feel this new way about themselves was so inspiring.
Yeah. Well, for a lot of people, just getting into a gym to do anything is major stepping outside their comfort zone. For others, they're in a gym and, like you said, maybe just not in the right section of the gym.
Yeah.
How about that person though that really either has never done it before? Because I'm imagining a lot of your clients that you work with, they're just starting working out. They're just starting on a path to get into better shape. How
Yes.
do you encourage somebody like that?
The person I love training people who hate working out.
Mm-hmm.
I love that person. I love the person who has injuries because I had injuries, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I love people who like are so uncomfortable in a gym. Like I that's my ideal person to work with, the person who's so uncomfortable in a gym. This environment here, it's very private, so they can feel that, more like themselves. They're not exposed to everybody watching them.
Mm-hmm.
They can learn from the very beginning, getting those people to have a different experience the very first time, where they don't feel shame, they don't feel, embarrassed, they don't feel awkward, they don't feel
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It changes their perspective. Then they have a new, a new view on it, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, this isn't what I thought it would be. Or people who've done things before, they would tell me, they're like, I've never done something for this long before.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
getting them to be in a place that they feel, okay, they feel comfortable
Yeah.
is hugely important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the people that you've worked with, the clients that really do the best and make the best improvements or accomplishments or reach their goals? What's different about them? Because you're working with a lot of different types of people I know that have a lot of different, natural tendencies or habits or mindsets. What goes into that person that typically really sticks to it and actually, ultimately changes their life.
Yeah, they do life better. They learn to do life better. They learn to not get thrown off their game so easily. Or when they start to recognize that it's not the workout that's the problem, it's not the diet that's the problem, it's not the this, that my hormones, it's not those things. I mean, granted, some of those things can play a factor, but once they learn that they may have boundary problems, they let their, family comes first too often. Family should come first, but so are ourselves. Like we have to put some part of ourselves first as well.
Mm-hmm.
When they start to realize that, like, oh, I have a problem with commitment, I have a problem with um, working through tough times, I have a problem with when life gets overwhelming, I let everything go, I'm a black and white thinker. So you have a lot of personalities that have to overcome those root problems, rather than just thinking it's the workout that's the problem. It
Mm-hmm.
really isn't. It's how life goes on around us. So the people that do the best are the people that have figured out how to do life well.
Yeah, which is
Those
a
are the people.
great point. So it's not just your life in the gym. It's all of your habits, and and it's really thinking about. And because I know a lot of people like that, they're so focused, and it comes from a great place. They're focused on other people. They're focused on making other people happy, or they have a tough time saying no. They're
Yeah,
constantly being pulled in different directions, and ultimately they're really sacrificing their own happiness and their own well-being because they're so
yeah,
focused on everybody around them. When what you're saying is it's really got to start when you are focused on yourself, and not even a selfish way, but in a smart way, then you ultimately are a better influencer of other people, right?
yeah. You're better for other people. You're better for other people. Some people, they come in, and they have, I can spot an adult child of an alcoholic in a room of 50 people.
Can you
So when
really?
that woman comes in,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll ask the question, be like, anybody in your family ever an alcoholic? And they'll be like, oh yeah, my such and such. They have a way of thinking,
Mm.
they have a way of, perception of what's going on around them. The things that really stress them out are unique things. I can pick that person out, and I know them very well because I was
Mm-hmm.
one.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that person.
Yeah.
And, it's their self talk, the things that they tell themselves, and, getting them to see that these things do not have to be such and such. Then you get people who live life on the pendulum. They're one extreme and then they're the other extreme. They're back, they're forth, they're on, they're off, getting them to learn to live in the center a little bit, and we talk about a lot of these things while training. So
Mm-hmm.
training, I described to them, I said, training is like something, it's like a root, like something that grounds you. It's a ritual, something you do consistently. Around your ritual, you build your habits and your character and your principles. So weight training for them becomes ritualistic.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, then it's something that's grounding, something they can count on, something they progress. But meanwhile, outside of that, we're working on all these other things that contribute to the reasons why they fail, because they don't just fail with their diet and nutrition. It's
Mm-hmm.
in other areas of life too, and
Yeah.
they carry over.
Right. It's interesting. Yeah, you have success in this area, and it definitely. And I saw it myself. I had. We were talking earlier, and I'd like to actually get your comments on this. But I dealt with major anxiety, panic attacks for 20 plus years, and I found working out was a big part of me getting over that, and it gave me confidence. So I think about. I just wanted to, when I started back as a teenager, I just wanted to look better. I wanted bigger arms, bigger muscles. But I didn't have any idea the impact it would have on my life and how many other areas of my life, and really all of them, that it directly or indirectly affected. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on that? I mean, in particular, anxiety, because I know that's something that so many people struggle with.
Yeah. So many people struggle with it. I struggle with it. I've gotten better with it over time. I was in 7 years of an Al Anon program, which helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that helped me kind of navigate life a little bit better. But anxiety can be crippling. Like there were times I would have anxiety for like 3 days. And then it was like years ago when I didn't understand my anxiety, and it would derail me for days, and you couldn't get progress done. You couldn't get anything done. I mean, it can set people back pretty bad. I would be like, don't you see the sky's falling? And everybody's like, it's okay. Everything's okay. Like, no, like really, the sky is falling. It's totally falling. And they're like, no, it'll be okay. And I'm like, you're all crazy. Like, this is really bad. That's how it felt to somebody having panic and anxiety. And the other person sitting there telling you it's going to be fine. And you're like, no, this is, can't you feel how bad this is right now?
Mm,
It's such a terrible feeling. Now, if I get anxiety, I'm like, I know it's happening. I know everything else around me is okay. I feel this is really bad right now. I feel this is really bad, but I can still take care of myself. And
mm,
that's what I talk to clients about. Like, even though we feel bad and these feelings are not facts always, we have these feelings. We don't have to let go of our things that are our rituals and our habits, which ground us, okay, which
mm,
center us.
right.
But anxiety can be horrendous. And
Mm,
for people that struggle with it, sometimes they don't even realize that's the root cause of what's going on with so much of what they're dealing with. But when
mm.
they finally come to terms with it and they get better tools, it's like life changing.
Wow. What might be
Yeah.
that first step? I mean, for somebody who's listening that's dealing with it, and that is a great way and a different perspective of, okay, it's, you kind of, it's almost a level of self awareness. Like, okay, hey, I've
Hmm.
been here. This is not, nothing's as bad as I'm thinking it is. But you're on the other side of it. You've gone through it. What was that first step or first couple of steps? How do you start getting there?
For me, whenever I would get into that anxious mode, um, I would listen to the antithesis of the fear I was having. So I would seek out something that I'm like, okay, I'm feeling this. Like I'm feeling like one of the big things like here, starting the studio. I was like, how can I do this? Like I have rent now to pay, I have this to pay, I have overhead, I have all this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to like boost my revenue. And I was so fearful that I would fail.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to listen to something else about how people succeeded and what does success look like and what does my mind have to be like when I succeed and what are the thoughts that I have to have. So I literally had to listen to somebody else's thoughts because mine were too damaging.
Mm.
And I know then I started to recognize I'm like, this is not the time to listen to me. This is the time to listen to wiser words.
Yeah,
So I
that's
would
great.
plug myself in. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I literally like neuroplasticity. I think I reprogrammed my brain
Mm-hmm.
over the years,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I would plug myself into the opposite of whatever it was that I was struggling with.
Yeah, that's
So,
fascinating, and I agree 100%. Everybody has self-talk. They talk to themselves. It's most of the time it's negative for most people out
yeah.
there. And the first step is being self-aware. And I love your approach. The ideal is that you can change your own self-talk, but sometimes you're not in a
Hmm.
position to be able to do that. And listening and getting it from somewhere else, and starting almost to envision the other side of that of, okay, well, what happens if this really takes off and I'm too busy and I'm making too much money and you start to fill your
Yeah.
head almost with the other side of that spectrum there. And that's pretty cool. And it works extremely well. Yeah.
It does. It does. And I'm a small goal builder. I'm like an attainable goal builder. Like some people are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to, be a multimillionaire by such and such or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm like, I got to see that next goal. I'm like, okay, I'm going to, hit this number of revenue that month. Then I'm going to hit this number. Then I'm going to
Yeah.
hit this number. And that was more attainable for me to see.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that with everything, like any little, I have to have attainable steps. So I
Mm-hmm.
set those goals because everything's progress. Like people will be like, oh my gosh, I'm not losing weight. I'm not making any, this and that. I'm like, remember 3 months ago you were binge eating? Remember that? Are you still binge eating?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not doing that. I'm like, that's progress. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the scale may not drop 25 pounds. Okay. But you have to make those little small steps happen before you get to those big wins.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people look for the big win and they already talk themselves out of it that they failed,
Yeah. Yeah.
if they don't see that big win.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It,
they have to see those little, like such little things are progress. And every little thing you have to look for is progress and
yeah.
heading in the right direction.
That's a
Yeah.
great point. I talk to people, and this goes for health as well as business and leaders that I talk to. That oftentimes we get misled in our mind because we're tying the wrong result to, or result is reinforcing the wrong action or behavior. So, for example, somebody
Hmm.
somebody might step on. I might eat 2 or 3 cheeseburgers today and I might actually step on the scale tomorrow morning and have maintain my weight or even drop the pound.
Yeah.
And which gets me thinking, okay, well, maybe my body's just wired differently and I can actually handle eating a cheeseburger or two every single day. So, or
No.
on the other side, hey, I ate so healthy today or yesterday over the last couple of days, I didn't drop any weight. So obviously it doesn't work. People's mind plays games with them, right? And
The scale messes with
it
people.
does. I do. I
I
weigh
literally
myself.
coach. It's funny. I coach people through stepping on that scale daily and work on what their feedback mentally is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they mess with themselves every time they step on that scale. So then what do? They don't step on the scale. And then
Yeah.
when they step on it, they're like, where'd that 20 pounds come from? I'm like, you should have been stepping on the scale. Like, don't you check your bank account like at least weekly? I check mine daily, but I'm a little anal, you
Yeah,
know?
right,
Like,
right. Yeah, I'm one of those
yeah.
that steps on the scale every day, so that might not be good, but it might be too much. But the point is that it's not a surprise if you do the activities and you get in the right behaviors and rituals as you're talking about,
Yeah.
then over the long term you're going to see results. And it's about, I love what
Yes.
you said about the progress. It's not, a lot of times people get caught up mentally in the difference between where they are now and where they ideally want to be. And sometimes that can be really demotivating versus and frustrating versus looking at, hey, here's where I was a month ago or 2 months ago. And here's how I've progressed. And here's what I should be proud of. And, you know,
Yes.
be happy with that. Right.
Yeah, I mean, to look for those little wins, because once you get, like, you lose all the weight, then what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so you reached your goal, then what? And a
Mhm.
lot of people, I like seeing them, they have a number goal in their head or whatever, and I'm like, okay, you want to lose 20 pounds, but who they are at the beginning and who they are at the end, when they do it well and they do it successfully, is two different people. When someone really truly authentically loses the weight and transforms and it's genuine, that person never goes back to the person that they were.
Mm.
The person that forces it off and just focuses on forcing it off or forcing it through, they always regress.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's good. That's why you
Yeah.
see a lot of people go up and down and weight, or they,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
because there's certain foundations that they never really got, you
Hmm.
know, um, and it's so reflective in, like, their personal development. So I could see personal development being directly correlated to people's success in weight training or whatever it may be, or losing weight or jobs or businesses.
Hmm.
It really does come down to that personal development factor.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to, and it's interesting. I could talk to you about working out and health and fitness for hours because I'm obsessed with it myself. But I'd love to talk about your business because you did a great job. There's so many business owners that are listening to this and leaders in general that um, we're in a tough time. We've been through now at the end of 2020, 9 months of the pandemic, and it has really put an ultimate stress on people and businesses from every aspect of life. I mean, from health and finances and relationships and
Hmm.
businesses, some have, it's meant the breaking point of either surviving or in some cases pivoting and thriving. And you've really done what sounds like a great job of pivoting. And I'd love to have you share kind of tell us about when the pandemic hit. What were you thinking? What were you doing? What were you feeling?
I remember saying to Erin, who works with me next door, I'm like, what are we going to do with this COVID thing? And she's like, I'm not worried. I'm like, nope, you should be worried. Like, and she's like, nope, not worried. It's going to take 2 weeks and then it's going to come and go.
Mm,
And I was like, I don't think so. So when they finally said, okay, that's it, they shut everything down, I was just like, oh my God. Like, I just felt like having somebody tell me I can't do my business was extremely hard for me to accept. And it wasn't that I didn't believe it was real or this or that, but someone telling me you have to close your doors, you can't operate. I'm
mm,
like, this is my business. Like, how can you tell me not to do that? I never worked so hard in those first 2.5 days. I think I might have slept 5 hours a night.
mhm,
And I put my whole program online so quickly. And I set up Zoom. I'd never used Zoom before COVID. I set up everything. I set up my studio. Like, I have a whole behind me here, I have a whole big television set. that's hooked to my computer that I can see. So I can see clients in pretty life size up on the screen. And I kept my schedule in the studio exactly the same for clients, except they were at home. Nothing changed.
Hmm.
They were home. I think I made, I don't even know how many piles of workouts. In fact, I have them here, all these piles of workouts that
Hmm.
are stuff that they do at home. And that first couple, so I said, we're not missing. I took all my weights. I gave all my weights out to my clients. I said, take them home. I said, I expect to see you tomorrow. I said, when life hits you, you have to keep your routine. So that was pretty much the message the whole time. Like, even though life is changing, you have to have something that stays consistent no matter what. And if you're really committed to a goal, you do it anyway. You
Hmm.
don't do it because it's convenient. You don't do it because it's nice. You don't do it because you're going to meet your friends there. You don't do it. You do it because it's a discipline and it's something you've disciplined yourself to do
Hmm.
no matter what.
Yeah.
And if you don't have ideal equipment, then you do something else.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much the attitude that we had, but my gym was empty and most of my equipment was gone and my clients took a lot of it home and some of them had stuff and we continued on for a while
Yeah.
until it was able. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting,
And then
what's that?
oh no, and then I really didn't have like any major drop in revenue or I was very lucky.
Well, that's an incredible accomplishment for your business. And congratulations. I mean, that says a lot about you. It says a lot also about your business and the relationship you have with your clients. And just the fact that you gave your clients your weights, that to me is
Yeah.
amazing. Like, I don't know many, if any, gym owners that did that because you couldn't find
I
weights.
think they did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. I was not around any because I would have loved to have got some weights. I was in Boston at that time, and I'm like, I didn't have a home gym. The gyms were closed. I mean, I was miserable for a few months. I'm like, for somebody who's used to working out a lot, you take that away, and you at least can't do the
Yeah.
workouts that you like to do. But the uh, the interesting thing, the pandemic was this massive change. Now, some people looked at it as like the person you were speaking of is okay, this will just blow over in a couple of weeks. But I think a lot of businesses and business owners got caught up in the fact of okay, let me just sit and wait and let this thing go by. Which there are some things I think that makes sense, but in this case, this is a massive change. It's uncontrollable. It's a massive change which really requires what you did, and that's a massive activity or action, a massive
Yeah.
response. Your massive response was to change your whole business model and be able to deliver it virtually in a matter of 48 hours, which is tremendous. But most people don't think like that, right? I mean, is that unique, do you think? Is that how, you know, what are your
I
thoughts?
know people were scrambling to do it. I know that people got it up and got it going. They did it, their ways that they did it, but I kept my groups online. I mean, I had the same amount of training hours on, Zoom that I did in the studio. So
Mm-hmm.
in other words, I still had small groups, 4 or 5 people at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I even had, some people that I would call my clients. I'd be like, you say like, I don't know how to use Zoom. I said, well, set up a time. I'll walk you through the whole thing. I'll help you set it up on your computer. We'll go through one-on-one. I'll help you set up your room in your house. Like we did that via Zoom. So I did that for about 20 clients, like people who've never used Zoom before, who were like 68 years old, never did anything like that. I'm like, this is how you're going to open up Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Ready? Here we go. I did that. I handheld people through it. So they
Wow.
didn't have an excuse, to not.
So let me ask you. Let's talk about leadership itself because I look at leadership as is anytime you're influencing somebody to do something that they wouldn't have done or think a different way than they wouldn't have without you. Then that's leadership, and sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. It's leading other people, it's leading yourself. What do you think? What is great leadership? I mean, what are the best leaders? What kind of characteristics do they have? What does it really take to influence somebody in a great positive way in the right direction?
To me, I think, people that I've looked up to in the past, well, I think, they talk to you in a way that makes you excited about your own self. And they make you excited about taking that next step up instead of feeling like it's a should or, it's a must. So to try to inspire something from within to make them want to do such and such. And even though I may want somebody to count their macros, right, and be super strict about that, but even just getting somebody to have, a protein shake between 2 and 5 p.m., to prevent drop in serotonin and, sugar cravings that come so they don't derail the rest of their day. Getting them to see that, oh, okay, this little change made me better. Yes, I could do this. Yes, I could do that. Getting somebody to see that they can do something that wasn't what they thought they could do. And then it becomes a snowball effect. So that's one for a leader. Another for a leader is being genuine. My clients know all my struggles. They know, when my father died in August 14th, I mean, they saw some of my worst times, and they saw times when there, like these past 3 months, COVID was nothing compared to these last 3 months. Like getting through COVID, I think was preparation for me to deal with this next challenge.
Hmm.
And they were just like, oh my gosh, Jennifer, like, I don't even know how you're still standing after all of this. And talking about compartmentalizing, like, yes, I have life happening over here, but life doesn't have to happen to me. It could be happening all over there. Okay. And teaching them that they don't have to internalize every single thing. They
Hmm.
can still do self-care. They can still meet certain goals. They can decide to maintain. They may not make progress, but they can make a decision to maintain and not let life just swing them here and there.
Hmm.
So I think those are attributes of great leaders, and also people who walk the walk and talk the talk.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not going to tell you, to not eat sugar and go stuff myself with sugar. Like, I'm not going to do that.
Hmm.
I'm pretty honest about it, and pretty honest when I do stuff sugar in my face. I'll tell them, you're like, oh my gosh, I was so stressed out. And all of a sudden I bought this box of Mike and Ike's and half the thing was gone between here and down the road on Holly Springs Road, and clearly I was not in my right mind.
Yeah.
So talking about these things with them and, letting them know that we're all human.
I think that
So
that's so
yes.
perfect, so perfectly said. Because I think the days of the leader being the I have all the answers and I know everything and I'm perfect and this and that. I mean, that just doesn't fly. I mean, people aren't
No.
drawn to that type of person. They want somebody who is real. They want to follow somebody who's who really is human, who's like them, and but figured out how to overcome some of the bad tendencies, or figured out how to
Yeah.
make better decisions, or figured out how to do things a little different that gives a better result. And that's better and easier for somebody to relate to and follow. And that sounds
Yeah.
like what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then even, yeah, herniating my back. How'd you do it? Acute injury, but yeah, I'm screwed up. Like, I can't work out, but I can do what I can do is this. So I'm not going to just like take this as a sabbatical for 4 weeks.
Hmm.
You work on what you can do, so
Yeah.
and keep moving forward in some way, shape, or form
That's
instead of
great.
just throwing in the towel.
Yeah. So what's your vision with the business with Think Holistic Fitness?
Well, I go back, I start graduate school January 4th. So I go back for clinical mental health counseling. I always saw this, since it is holistic, it's not that I don't believe in medicine, I totally do. And I have a good network of people that I work with, doctors are in physical therapy. I have good mental health therapists that I work with, good psychiatric nurse practitioners I refer people to. I see this becoming, more of like a one-stop shop, which a lot of people say it is,
Hmm.
and bringing it that way for in person. And then, online, eventually creating, because, there's a lot of disordered eating out there, not necessarily eating disorders, but disordered eating. A lot of people struggle with, types of ways of eating that is unhealthy. So that's one of the reasons why I went into getting this degree.
Hmm.
Um, and to broaden that a lot more and hopefully bring that more into some online digital products,
Mm.
so can reach
Great.
some more people.
That's great.
Yeah.
So people don't have to be, they can be anywhere and still plug into what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that will go forward. So I'm just, I'm excited to go back to school. I think if I could be a perpetual student, I would be, but it's
Yeah.
not real life.
Well, you never stop
So
learning. That's great.
yeah.
So, if people want more information, they want to learn about you, they want to learn about Think Holistic Fitness, how do they get a hold of you?
They can just go to www.thinkholisticfitness.com. I always have new promotions up there. I'll be talking about soon the digital product that I'm going to be coming out with, which is how to fix a broken diet. Because a lot of people, they know it's broken and they just keep breaking it more. I'm like, well, you're doing more of the broken part. So we have to go back to the other way. So, how to fix a broken diet. So that's going to be a digital product in the next probably couple weeks. And so that'll be out. And then, but yeah, I always have promotions up on my first page,
Hmm.
the homepage up there. So things that are going on. So
Gotcha.
yeah, so they can go there and take a look.
Excellent. So let me ask you, when people ask you what you do, what do you tell them?
What do you mean?
Well,
Oh, what do I do?
yeah. So when they say what do you do, because you impact people in a lot of different ways. I mean, do you what is your answer to that question? Um,
I feel like
you know,
I basically, I just say I help women live a life that they feel much better about.
excellent,
Yeah.
excellent.
That's pretty much, so they fix, we fix a lot of different things. There's a lot that goes into that. But, women here, I mean, there are women who come in and they're 60 years old. Like one of our clients is 72 and she is amazing.
Mm,
Like she is just an amazing human being. And she started training when she was 67. It's never too late. You're never too old. You're never too old to start anything. And things can always get better. Things don't have to get worse. That's what I tell people, you
mm-hmm.
know. You can turn anything around at any time that you want,
Mm,
and our Beverly, everybody talks about Beverly. Like I just love her. She's my 72-year-old who deadlifts 135 pounds. Like she's awesome. Like
wow.
nothing stops that woman, nothing at all.
Yeah.
And she found a new version of Beverly, and I love that. I love to uncover that on people.
Wow. That's awesome. And it sounds like a pretty cool community amongst the women there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a great community. Everybody likes each other. We don't do women cattiness. Like that does not exist here. It's not even tolerated. Like
Yeah. That's
so
great.
yeah, so we have a great community of people. I think we have like 150, 160 women. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's terrific. And they're all
Yeah.
able to communicate with each other, and there is that kind of feeling of it's a community. They're not doing it by themselves.
It's totally a community. And if
Yeah.
somebody's missing, where's so and so? Did you text I'm going to text so and so. Where is she? And
Ah,
they reach out to each other. So
that's
yeah,
great.
they built a nice little,
Little
unit for
accountability there
themselves.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
terrific.
It's kind of cool.
Uh, well, this has been fantastic. I'd love to talk to you for more. I know we're at the end of our time here. What last words of wisdom do you want to leave with the audience here today? You've shared so much already, but what would you leave them with?
I would say don't wait for the perfect time. It's never too late. Start yesterday. Don't wait till Monday. Stop that nonsense. And yeah, just take the first step.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's what I would say. And I would say this was an Al Anon phrase, keep coming back. It works if you work it.
It works if
Yeah.
you work it. I like it. All right. Well, we are going to put all your information in the show notes so people have an easy way to get a hold of you. And this has been really, really great. Congrats on all the stuff that you've done and what you've
Thank
accomplished,
you.
and even more so how you're helping people get to where they were trying to get to, and do things that they never would have been able to do without your help. So congrats on all that. So
Yeah. Thanks.
yeah, we've been here with Jennifer Rodriguez, owner of Think Holistic Fitness. We appreciate you greatly being here, Jennifer, and we appreciate all
Thank you,
you
John.
for. You're welcome. We appreciate all of you for listening and tuning in. There's been another episode of Tomorrow's Leader. Keep liking, sharing, subscribing, all that kind of good stuff. Add comments, suggestions. Go down below. Review 5 stars, of course. I'm always interested in your comments and thoughts, and appreciate you joining today. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.